Hello, my name is Simon Double, and welcome to Inside the Rails, a monthly podcast for horse racing enthusiasts everywhere. And I'm joined, as ever, by my co-host, Phil Boyle from BG Racing. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Hi, Simon. Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Are you bored of hanging out with me yet? You came to Lingfield races with me on Sunday. Then we were in Zoom meetings on Monday and Tuesday. We're recording today, which for the listeners' benefit is a Thursday. So my question is, how did you cope with not spending any time with me yesterday?
It was very tough, but somehow I survived. No, I was back to doing the day job. Did quite a lot of early bird networking yesterday. And, I can't believe where January's gone. It seems like only yesterday we were interviewing Di Arbuthnot from Retraining of Racehorses. But I'm delighted to say we've got another great guest, indeed an A-list guest, in the shape of Racing Writer of the Year Lee Mottershead, Senior Writer at the Racing Post. How about that?
Yep, I'm looking forward to chatting to Lee, and no doubt listeners will remember that I was hobnobbing it with the great and the good at the HWPA Awards when Lee earned that accolade. So, yeah, looking forward to chatting to him, and I always enjoy reading his columns in the Racing Post.
Yeah, indeed. Now, look, before we get to that interview to savour, let's look back at January and that race to savour, the Clarence House Chase at Ascot, between the unbeaten pair Shishkin and Energumene. Now, as our national hunt expert, I'm guessing you saw the race, but I don't think you weren't actually at Ascot.
No, I was actually at Lingfield that day. It was the second day of their Winter Million meeting, and I was there for the whole meeting. I know we're going to talk about that later, but yeah, I certainly planted myself in front of a TV set when the race was due off and watched it. And yeah, wasn't it a brilliant spectacle?
Absolutely. It really was a race that lived up to all the hype and the billing. It was a truly wonderful race, and I really thought Shishkin was beaten after they jumped the last, but it was a shame either horse had to lose, a comment which was echoed by Nicky Henderson.
Yeah, that did seem appropriate. And doesn't Nicky have an embarrassment of riches in his yard? I mean, earlier in the month, Constitution Hill absolutely dominated his rivals in a novice hurdle at Sandown, and I know it's still early days for him, but I think he could really be another superstar for the yard with Shishkin sort of only just in front of him.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of Constitution Hill. I think he's now 2-1 favourite for the Supreme. Of course, Nicky Henderson does also have John Ball heading for Cheltenham. He's still unbeaten after winning at Haydock. Eased slightly in the betting, out to 4-1 for the Supreme. But look, he's very hard to knock, isn't he? Now, look, coming down to earth a little, what about BG Racing? Have you had any runners of late?
Yeah, slightly less exalted level than what we've been talking about. But I mentioned last month we've been helping our trainer, Michael Atwater, with the costs of one of his hurdlers, Joey's Gift, that he owns himself, in exchange for which he's happy to invite us to go racing with his owner's badges. And we did so up at Huntingdon, where he ran better than he did on his hurdling debut. I said in the last podcast he'd just been hurdling at Newbury and he was pulled up there, but he finished 5th or 6th at Huntingdon. And yeah, we're looking forward to getting him out again. We had a good day with him at Huntingdon. We had lunch in the owners and trainers facility, and yeah, we're hoping to head to Fontwell this coming weekend, which will be actually just before this podcast is released, but after we're recording it. Although the race has already happened, I can't actually tell the listeners what happened. You'll have to look in the results for that, and hopefully we'll sort of after that get him into handicaps. What about you? Have you had any runners?
Yeah, just the one. We had Twilight Bay making her handicap debut, racing again at Kempton on January the 12th. Beaten just over 4 lengths. She made the running from quite a bad draw, really. But yeah, I mean, she was out in front for about 5 of those 6 furlongs. And I think she just got a little bit tired mentally as much as anything. In hindsight, quite pleased with the run. We're trying to look for another race for her. And, a lot of people are saying there's too much racing. But as you and I probably both know, it's often difficult finding the right race. We're trying to find a 5 furlong race for her at Southwell. Can't find one. But we'll probably head to Lingfield for a 6 furlong race in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Yeah, I've found similar issues. I know it's something race planners are always working on to try and make sure all of our horses have the right opportunities, the right distance, the right class. But yeah, there's often that accusation that we have too much racing in the UK, and perhaps that's fair when you see such small fields occasionally contesting valuable races. But similarly, when you have nothing suitable for a few days, or you make an entry and you find there's 50 horses entered in a race where only 14 can run, it can be really frustrating as well. So yeah, putting together that programme of racing can't be easy, and hopefully those that get burdened with that task will just keep refining and improving things until we get the right sort of balance.
Yeah, now look, away from the racecourse, I know that you've done some other things with your owners because indeed one of the recent events I joined in.
You did. I arranged a stable visit to Michael Atwater's yard last Sunday morning, where I was joined by about 15 shareholders. And then we went down to Lingfield for the third day of the Winter Million meeting in the afternoon. And we had about 20 of us there, including yourself, in a box with a buffet lunch and a balcony to view the racing from.
Yeah, and it was a great afternoon, Phil. Thanks very much for inviting me along. And it was a nice change to go to a jumps meeting. I don't think I've been to Lingfield for a jumps meeting before, but also to go racing as a guest and not as an organiser. That was quite a treat. Now, you know, you and I and other syndicators, we put on lots of similar events, don't we, for our owners all the time. And that's really, for me, when I'm sort of selling the dream, if you like, that's a big part of it. Getting behind the scenes on the gallops, but also going to the races, hospitality events, maybe when you haven't got a runner, and you can meet up with old friends and indeed make new ones, can't you?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And as I'm sure you do as well, I get some really positive feedback after social events like that. And they're just another reason why our listeners should look at getting involved in shared ownership, I think.
Absolutely. Now, the afternoon we attended on the Sunday at Lingfield was day 3 of their Winter Million meeting, a new initiative. I know you were there for all 3 days, and how was it for you, as they say?
Well, I thought it was a brilliant meeting. As you say, it was new this year. There was 2 days of jumps on Friday and Sunday and 1 day of flat racing. It'll probably take a year or two for people, trainers and race goers, to get used to it being on the calendar. And Lingfield have done quite a lot of work on the drainage. I think a Lingfield jumps meeting in January, I think a lot of the trainers might have assumed it wouldn't go ahead because, it does get very wet there. But they got the meeting on, and hopefully that'll build confidence in people next year. That'll see it go from strength to strength as people get used to where it sits in the calendar. There was some brilliant prize money. Things there were really well organised. Arena Racing and the team at Lingfield did a fantastic job. And the course partnered with the Racehorse Syndicates Association that we're both on the committee of to try and attract syndicate runners and attendees. Probably the most notable initiative for shared ownership over the weekend was the creation of a syndicate suite for syndicate owners.
Yeah, that again was another great initiative and almost a first. I think the Odd Course have set up a syndicate area, but I think that's the first sort of permanent structure. And the great idea, I think, behind that is it frees up space from the owners and trainers. So individual owners don't necessarily feel swamped by large groups. But I think the owners and trainers area was actually very large itself. But a really good initiative. There was a cash bar there, complimentary teas and coffees and biscuits. And from what I could tell, it seemed to go down quite well, and people seem to enjoy it, didn't they, Phil?
Yeah, they certainly seem to. I was checking in on the suite over the weekend just to see how things were going, and yeah, I certainly appreciated the hot drinks on offer. It was pretty chilly outside over the weekend, but yes, we took advantage of the syndicate suite ourselves, didn't we, on Sunday to record an Inside the Rails special on video. So
we did.
I appreciate that seeing us on video is hardly likely to enhance the experience from listening to us on the podcast. And obviously, without our producer Callum helping us sound like we know what we're doing, it was definitely a bit of a risk. But yeah, we grabbed a phone, a camera, a phone camera and a microphone, and had a chat with Steph Weatherhead, who's actually clerk of the course at Brighton, but was helping out George Hill, the clerk at Lingfield, with that meeting. And we also spoke to Sam Cohn from Arena Racing, who's part of the senior management team who backed the Winter Million as a concept.
Did a very good job in ambushing me. No, I'm joking, really. Yeah, nothing like singing for your supper, is it? But actually, it was great fun to do. And I don't think it turned out too badly, actually. And we've actually put a link to the video in our show notes, so I would definitely urge our listeners to take a look. Now, look, changing tack somewhat, excuse the bad pun, did you see that Australia have announced the launch of a valuable race for syndicate-owned runners, syndicate-owned runners only, that is, at their Magic Millions meeting?
Yeah, I did. That's a great initiative. I think that to qualify for that, horses have to be registered in syndicate ownership for a decent period of time, just to avoid, obviously, a horse in individual ownership just getting taken over by a syndicate for the day. So it rewards people that have been in syndicates for a while. And wouldn't it be great to see something similar in the UK? I noticed that our former Inside the Rails guest, Dan Abraham, who's chairman of the Racehorse Syndicates Association, was quick to remind the UK decision makers that the RSA's proposed a series of syndicate races in the past.
Indeed, he did. Dan was on the ball, doesn't miss a trick, does he? Quick as a flash, he was out there. And, pointing out that, Australia has just delivered something that many people had told him couldn't be done in the UK. It would be too difficult to set up. So, at the very least, let's hope that these ideas get at least another airing in discussions during coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I hope so. And, that would be a great thing to see. Speaking of the coming months, have you got anything lined up in February or on or off the racecourse?
Yeah, I mentioned Twilight Bay earlier on, going to Lingfield. It'll probably be over 6 furlongs. That'll be quite soon. Going up to Newmarket with the existing owners. I've sold quite a few shares, which is nice, in the Buratino, who's now a gelding, by the way, but that went very, very well.
Okay.
And I've got some, hopefully, prospective owners. I think there's going to be about 17, 18 of us up there, going up quite shortly. And, so looking forward to that. We'll be going to lunch afterwards at the Bedford Lodge. But what about you? What are you up to?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be racing again. I suspect Joey's Gift will be out in a handicap sometime in February. Both our fillies are now back in training, so there'll be stable visits as well. Before that, I'm going down to Cheltenham for the Festival Trials Day. Not the best of timing with that taking place sort of between us recording and releasing this episode, but no doubt if there's anything eye-catching, I'll make sure it's posted on the Inside the Rails Twitter account, or I'll report back next month.
Well, that's something to look forward to, Phil. And talking of things to look forward to, we now have our guest on the line, Racing Writer of the Year, Lee Mottershead. Hi, Lee. Welcome to Inside the Rails. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I am very well, Simon, thank you. I'm delighted to be taking part in the pod. And you find me sat in my office in Ashstead, Surrey, about 3 miles from Tattenham Corner, where we live. I am surrounded by racing books, form books, and 2 snoring ginger geriatric cats.
Okay. Now, look, you've been voted Racing Writer of the Year for the 3rd time, joining such illustrious names as Alistair Down, no less, Chris McGrath, and the late Alan Lee. And they've won the award more than twice. How did that make you feel? And then perhaps you can tell us how you caught the racing bug. So what's the Lee Mottershead story?
Well, with the HWPA award, Simon, it was lovely. It's always nice to be recognised by your peers, because it's other racing writers that do the voting on that one. So it was a real honour. And in terms of my story, so I was brought up in Lancashire, in Blackburn, pretty much, I think, learned to read by reading the racing pages of newspapers. Always loved horse racing. It was always my sport. Although I would look at the Blackburn Rovers results, I was never really a huge football fan. My team growing up was Michael Stout and Walter Swinburne. That was my team, with Jenny Pittman and Ben DeHaan over jumps as well. They were the people I sort of tend to follow. Went to uni in York, partly because York is surrounded by so many racecourses, and I always knew I wanted to work in and around horse racing, but just was never really sure what as, because I was brought up in a town. Certainly wasn't a horsey country rural background. It also wasn't a background with a huge amount of cash, so there wasn't money to be riding ponies, things like that. And I'm also 6 foot and a bit, so I was never going to be the next Derby winning jockey. But fortunately, I got a job on the Racing Post.
Now, I think you've worked for the Racing Post for 25 years. What was your first job on the paper?
Yes, I'm officially ancient. 25 years. It's amazing. It's hard to believe sometimes myself that it's that long ago. But yeah, I started in September 1996. And at that point, I applied for, I saw a job in the Racing Post classified pages for a classified sales manager. Now, I had no sales experience whatsoever, and therefore, not surprisingly, I didn't get the job. But the person who did get the job was an internal appointment, and she left her sort of more junior position available. And very luckily, I got that one. So I came down in September 1996, and the Racing Post was based in Surrey, Rains Park, just next door to Wimbledon. And my job title was Makeup Controller. which didn't mean I was applying foundation to members of the Racing Post writing team. My job was to lay out the advertising in an edition. That was part of the job. So I would go down, and this shows how old things are. I would go down to see the editor, who then was Alan Byrne, who now runs the business, with a book of graph paper with penciled advert positions